everybody. This is Mel here at the Divine Council Worldview Conference in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'm here with one of the attendees, Anthony Diastello. Sorry, I'm not used to that. But Anthony's been kind of talking with Rich and I for quite a while, and he's got some really interesting ideas of how this concept of, the divine council, how this concept of the spirit realm, the unseen realm, has kind of had an impact on his life and kind of how he's using it. And so that's kind of how Rich and I like to talk to people about these kind of things. That's why we interview people in such a manner, is because it affects people in different ways. They use it in different ways, and they're kind of called to different areas. So we kind of want to talk to Anthony about it. And so Anthony's got he's got some you said short stories, novels.
Yeah. The overarching thing is called Allies of Majesty. It's the IP, and it's centered more around a tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah.
But what I'm working on first, because people are like, well, where can I find the information? And I have access, but like as far as publicating a new thing, or publishing, there we go, a new publication, a new thing, is that the struggle is, when you have a new world, is how do I get people into that world? How do I get people invested in that and caring, And so I found that role-playing games are fun, and a lot of people do them, but buying $60+ book, and at least one, if not three, and then getting 3 to 5 friends around for 3 to 4 hours and taking the time to learn the rules and everything, that's a bigger investment than, hey, I'll spend $20-ish on a book and read it myself.
Yeah. And I like this because and we're going to get into it. So he's kind of developing this like D&D themed divine council game, role-playing game of sorts, which I like this because the people that are kind of into this topic, we're already kind of nerds, and like D&D it's like the ultimate game for nerds, kind of, it's like it has been in the past. Yeah. And this is kind of a new way of thinking about it and dealing with it. It is taking myth, instead of being super mythical, it's actually kind of bringing it back to the real.
I was going to say, actually, yeah. So why do people buy Lord of the Rings Stratego or Risk? Why do people buy Star Wars Monopoly? It's not because they want another copy of Monopoly. It's because they want another way to enjoy. They kind of enjoy Monopoly, but they want another way to enjoy Star Wars. Immerse themselves in what they want. And so what Ron was talking about earlier today about being compartmentalized, man, I was the only person that clapped, but I clapped for that because it's exactly what I'm dealing with, what I'm preaching in that sense, is that we compartmentalize all these parts of our life. But if I'm playing, like, why does my game and hobby time or my entertainment time have to be divorced from my faith and my worldview? And so I'll put this in the words of one person who plays D&D with his son. He's like, it just kind of hit me when my son, he's talking about his young son that he's playing with, and they're Christians, and he says, my son wanted to, like, his character in the game wanted to drop down. He had something going wrong, and he wanted to get on his knees on the beach there where they were over and start praying. And he's like, how do I explain to him it doesn't really work like that in this game? There is no God like that in this game.
Yeah.
And you're,
it's going to do nothing.
Yeah. It's like, how do I deal with that? But this is organic. It's not a fantasy world that isn't relatable. It is our own world. And instead of working on the antediluvian pre-flood stuff or working on end times fantasy stuff, there's a lot of interesting things that happen in there. But most of the gameplay, it's set between the flood and when he comes back, it's relevant times that are relatable. And the only difference is you are playing one of the angels, one of the Elohim. You're playing as a character that is on the spiritual side of the veil, and you're involved in sometimes rather mundane things in people's lives. but it's showing a lot of times also you're being released as an answer to prayer. And it's some human's prayer that is allowed you to get involved. And also a lot of times it's usually human sin or hurt or sin against humans that allow the dark spirits, like we just heard in the last session, when they do get involved, to get involved. It gives a doorway for them, gives an opening for them. And so by immersing yourself in this, a world where things work the way they work, even though there's some fun fantasy kind of stuff, things really work the way they work. And it allows you to, and this is what I've had adult men playing this game and like play-by-post and stuff in my Discord. They're saying, wow, I never thought role-playing, and they call them angel, so I never thought role-playing angels would have this impact. And what happens is it gives them time where they're just milling on this, just Hebrew meditation literature. Yeah, they're milling on this world that's constructed around biblical imagery, using ancient imagery, using ancient Near Eastern understandings of stuff. I'm not focusing on using the Bible as a springboard or divine counsel stuff as a springboard for my imagination. I'm instead trying to use my imagination and creativity to spotlight ancient thought and biblical thought. So as you're nerding out, you said geeking out, if you're learning Star Wars stuff, instead of that, like really ultimately in the end, what does it matter that Boba Fett, the beast he got swallowed by, was a Sarlacc or whatever it's called, I think, and he survived it because of his Beskar armor. And it's like, what does that, that's cool, but what is, it's, it's fun, but what does it really help you? Yeah. And this, as you're geeking out and nerding out, and you're like, oh, I want to know more about the deeper stuff. Like you talk about the Silmarillion, he keeps talking about, well, that's my Silmarillion is Heiser's stuff, Mackey's stuff, ancient Near Eastern stuff, the Bible, all this academic works, the DDD, so that is my Silmarillion. Awesome. So as people want to get deeper, I provide avenues, whether it's the discussion guide that comes with the book that I'm working on, or whether it's in my wiki, the behind the lore. If you want to see, why did he call it why does he do this? And I can lay out just tease the stuff behind it. And then give them references to say, hey, Naked Bible Podcast. Hey, whatever these resources are. And so just connect again, quit compartmentalizing. Let's connect it all. Yeah.
I love that. And I thought it was really interesting how you're talking about, going back to earlier in your comments about the kid, wanting to pray. And then you're talking about in the spiritual realm, in the game. You're right. It is kind of biblical. It's kind of like there is our power, our prayer activates power in the spiritual realm, and sin conversely activates other spiritual powers in the spirit realm. And so I think that would probably help people conceptualize what's really going on. Like we only kind of understand this material world. And I think that's actually a really interesting concept to kind of like put hey, let's wear some other shoes that we're not used to wearing. I think that's a really interesting idea.
That's been the biggest number one and I've had this for 25 years, which I know if you start adding up Heiser and subtracting, that's longer. But there's a story behind that. Yeah. But, and that's for another time probably. Yeah. But in that, the biggest feedback I've gotten more than anything else is it's really helped people be mindful that there are things going on bigger than them and that they don't see. Spiritually, of course, and that God may be active in situations, or that God can be through their prayers or other things active in situations in ways nobody realizes, or may have already been active and they just don't realize it, And so just thinking about that awareness that things are going on around us, that again, like what, I'm like Heiser, in the sense that I have this platform that you would think everything I say says, now let's do this. Like with the territorial spirits and all this, let's map them out and let's tear them down, but I'm not like, you would think because of the nature of this game in this world, everything, there'd be a demon under every rock and behind every headache that people have, and it's like, there's not. I go out of my way to make sure that there's not. And helping people realize, like Fern and Audrey talk about, that when there is, and I hope I'm not misquoting them, not from today, but other podcast episodes, when there is a a lot of what the deliverance for, has come to be, if I'm understanding them correctly when I listen, is helping this person realize they're an image of God and then exercising that authority as an image instead of exorcising the demon. Get out of here. It's a lot more of that person learning, helping them have the strength to say, you're not welcome anymore. Your influence isn't here anymore. Yeah. This is me. I'm taking me, as an image, not without the power of God, but as an image, Yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And you're hitting on something I think is interesting because that was interesting. We're kind of, what's going on right now is we're kind of going back to we just got finished with Vern and Audrey talking about some stuff, on the spiritual realm and people that have dealt with trauma and kind of reinforcing the fact that they're imagers of God. And so much of it is that what they're trying to do is they're trying to untrain what they kind of call mind control. But I think what that really mind control is it's getting them not to image. It's getting them to be essentially robotic in their activity. I would say
bestial, and I'll explain that.
But not a true imager has what's the word? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting it. A true imager has I don't want to say autonomy, but that's one of the words. Has autonomy to make the decisions that they want to make. Agency, that's the word. A true imager has agency to make the choices that they want to make. But some of these people that they deal with, they've kind of been trained through trauma not to have agency, to do what they're programmed. I'm gonna put that in quote, programmed and trained to do. This is kind of bringing them back. It's kind of reinforcing, no, you have agency. Yes. You don't have to do that.
When I said bestial, the reason I said that is I'm talking biblical imagery. One of the things that I realize is, part of one of the nuances of the Nahas, Nakash, in Genesis, and then also you see it in Daniel with the beasts, and you see it in Revelation, and you see it in Cain with the bestial imagery, predator imagery of crouching at the door, waiting for you, and all this. Is we see, I think that part of that is almost a slam to the serpent, in there, in that this is an Elohim that's behaving less than what he is. And then man, who's supposed to rule the beast, instead subserviates himself, or, he submits to the beast. He puts himself under the beast. Yeah, right. What do we do in Daniel? The nations are beasts, the same thing. And what do we do in Revelation? We're worshiping the beast instead of ruling the beast. And Cain can't master sin like he should, put in beast language, it's exactly, you're supposed to master it, rule it, but instead he lets it rule him. And so I think that imagery there, and in that case, that's what we do is we treat ourselves as less. I'm putting this right in front of the camera, I bet, with with my hand. But I just talk with my hands, but we allow ourselves to function as not less than an imager, not what we are. And the funny thing is we're pendulum people with our theology and everything else. So some people could hear me start saying, and you saying this stuff with agency and all this, and start saying, oh, only God has that. And they'll swing the pendulum. You're getting new agey. We're not. It's not that. Let's look at what the Bible says. Let's quit reacting to each other and to ourselves or whatever. Let's start looking at, let the pendulum sit where it is and say, what does the Bible say about this? So what does the Bible say about authority? And it doesn't have to be all the way over here or all the way we have it.
That's one of the things that's one of the things I've enjoyed is some of the, you get those answers, and the response that people usually have is they feel like they have to choose this. It's very, two-sided, it's one, it's A or B. And then like some things that I've enjoyed about listening to Ronn and Mike and other, even like Tim Mackey and others, is like sometimes it's a both and. It is a both. It's a both and sometimes there's a third option maybe on the table, but sometimes we just have this idea we have to choose one or the other. But
an interesting thing with agency that I'm going to get in trouble maybe with some Reformed folk, but I'll just say, the thing is, I'm not stating my opinion. I'm going to just state as I've studied ancient Near Eastern stuff, because I'm one of those ones that, okay, you're pointing me to this book, I'm buying it and I'm reading it, And as I've studied a lot of Second Temple, especially though, stuff, what I've seen is this idea of, like Archie's book, I've read, some of his on, the origin of Satan and unclean and, evil spirits and all that stuff.
Okay.
So, what you see there though, is a concept of this. It's actually the opposite of the depravity in the sense of they view the human as starting off with agency, and then the Satan or Satans that they'll say, and the unclean spirits, their job, or the evil spirits, their job is to tempt humans away from Yahweh and his Torah. I'm using their language. And then the more you cooperate with that, the more you submit to that, the less agency you then have. So instead of where I believe, and I'm not Reformed, so I'll try to state it correctly, that the idea that you're depraved, you have no ability to please God, and you have no ability to do the right thing until God frees you to do that, and then you have some agency. It's like the opposite. The ancient view would say the opposite, the ancient Jewish view. It would say you have agency until you start giving up that agency, and then you lose it.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I would say I see that in culture today. I would say the status quo is very easy. Like you don't have to think much.
Yeah.
Like it's really, you kind of put a lot of your thoughts, especially the part of your brain that's really critical thinking part, you just kind of put it on autopilot. You just kind of go along with the crowd. And it is true. I would agree with you. You kind of have less agency in the fact that you just kind of put your brain out, you know what, that's a pretty reasonable crowd, I'm just going to go along with them. I've noticed that a lot of people do it, and you see it. I mean, this is not a political statement. I'm not political, but it's like you see a lot of that in politics. Yeah. And then you see it kind of move from politics and filter into sort of morality in a sense as well.
You see it in education too. My mother-in-law, it was a public school teacher. And, the closer she got to retirement, the more she was like, I'm so glad don't. We have 12 children, and and sorry, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Sorry to surprise you like that. Yes. Didn't mean to surprise you, but sorry for not warning you ahead of time. But we homeschooled all of them. And that's one of the things that we see is that was one of our primary motivators. It wasn't like, as much, and I'm not making fun because I care about these things too. It wasn't about the quality of the education and all these other things, and even content of the education. A lot of it for us was not being shaped by your peers. Because even when, let's say you send people to a private school and you have better teachers, a lot of the other people that are going to that private school didn't have much of a choice, didn't choose to go there, and they're being sent there for either disciplinary or other reasons. And looking back, the teachers, their authority does have an influence on the atmosphere, but not as much as the peers. You are really when you talked about status quo, you're learning status quo in that culture, in any kind of corporate school culture. And I'm not trying to slam schools. I'm just saying that's one of our reasons for choosing to homeschool. And it shows up in our kids. They're able to have conversations with adults,
I will say that I have noticed that especially among homeschooled kids, or kids, like sometimes there's some good private schools that I've seen that like have better, like usually they're Christian schools, but it's kind of very regimented. But yeah, I was a teacher a long time ago. So I would even agree that it's kind of like it's at some point you're kind of handed curriculum and you're just told, these are the books we're going to teach from. Yeah. And like, you're going to go through this. And then even the standardized testing that you go to, it's like, we have to test these things. And it's kind of like nationally, sort of delegated, regulated of sorts. And it's like, if your school district wants funding, you're gonna have to pass. You're gonna have to pass. And here's the standards. And it's like there's just like kind of a hierarchical standard of that system set up. So you're right. Like, but it's interesting. I knew this conversation was going to go in many different ways, but this is awesome. Anyway, we're going to have Anthony probably back on the podcast just to talk more about the game and his 12 kids and some other things at a later time, kind of more in depth, but we want to kind of get some bite-sized interviews while we're here at the conference. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks, Anthony, for taking some time on the hot seat, and we'll talk to everyone later. Bye.